My stepmom wanted to kick me out to make space for the baby. However, little did she know that I was the owner of the house, and now they are panicking. I'm a 19-year-old guy, and I've been living with my dad and stepmom for the past 3 years. Things have been tough lately, and I really need some advice. My dad got married to my stepmom when I was 16. At first, everything seemed okay. She was nice enough when we all hung out together, but I noticed she acted different when it was just the two of us. She'd make little comments about how I was lazy or not helping out enough around the house. I tried to ignore it and just do my best to stay out of her way. As time went on, things got worse. When my dad wasn't around, she'd criticize everything I did. She'd complain about the way I did chores, the music I listened to, even the way I dressed. Nothing was ever good enough for her. I tried talking to my dad about it a few times, but he always brushed it off. He'd say things like, "Oh, she's just trying to help you become more responsible," or "I'm sure she doesn't mean it that way." The real problem started about 6 months ago when my dad found out she was pregnant. My stepmom was over the moon about it. She started talking about all these plans for the baby's room and how excited she was to be a mom. I was happy for my dad, but I couldn't help feeling left out. That's when the lies started. My stepmom began telling my dad all these stories about things I supposedly did wrong. She'd say I was staying out late when I wasn't, or that I was being disrespectful to her, which wasn't true. I tried to defend myself, but it was always her word against mine. My dad seemed confused and didn't know who to believe. Last week, my stepmom announced that she wanted to remodel the house to make a nursery for the baby. She started talking about knocking down walls and rearranging rooms. I didn't think much of it at first, but then things took a turn I never expected. 2 days ago, my dad sat me down for a talk. He looked uncomfortable and wouldn't meet my eyes. He said, "Honey, you're 19 now, and you're becoming a man. We think it might be time for you to get your own place." I was shocked. I stammered something like, "What? Why? Did I do something wrong?" He rushed to reassure me. No, it's not that. It's just, well, with the baby coming, we need the space, and you're old enough now to be on your own. It'll be good for you to learn some independence." I could tell by the way he was talking that this wasn't his idea. My stepmom was standing in the doorway, arms crossed with this smug look on her face. That's when I knew she had put him up to this. I tried to argue to explain that I wasn't ready to move out. I'm still in community college, and I work part-time at a local grocery store. There's no way I can afford my own place right now. But my dad just kept repeating that it would be good for me and that I needed to grow up. The worst part came when my stepmom chimed in. She said, "You've got 2 days to find a place. We need to start the remodeling soon, and we can't have you underfoot while we're trying to get ready for the baby." 2 days? How am I supposed to find a place to live in 2 days? I don't have any savings. I don't know the first thing about renting an apartment, and I don't have anyone I can stay with. All my friends still live at home too. I spent all of yesterday in a daze. I couldn't focus at work, and I kept making mistakes. My boss noticed and asked if everything was okay. I just mumbled something about family problems and tried to pull myself together. When I got home, I overheard my dad and stepmom talking in the kitchen. My stepmom was saying something about how it was about time I moved out and how I was holding them back. My dad sounded unsure, but she kept talking over him, saying things like, "You've got to cut the cord sometime, and he'll thank us for this later." I wanted to burst in there and tell them both off, but I knew it wouldn't do any good. My stepmom has my dad wrapped around her finger, and anything I say will just be twisted and used against me. So now I'm sitting here in my room trying to figure out what to do. I've got less than 24 hours to come up with a plan, and I'm completely lost. I can't afford an apartment. I don't have any relatives nearby who could take me in, and I'm not even sure how to start looking for a roommate situation. I've thought about trying to reason with my dad one more time, but I'm afraid it'll just make things worse. My stepmom will probably accuse me of trying to manipulate him or something. I've also considered just refusing to leave, but I don't know what would happen then. Could they legally kick me out? Would they call the police? I don't want to cause a huge scene, but I also don't want to end up homeless. Part of me wants to just pack a bag and leave tonight, but I don't even know where I'd go. I could probably crash on a friend's couch for a night or two, but that's not a long-term solution. I feel like my whole world is falling apart. This is the only home I've ever known, and now I'm being pushed out with no warning and no support. I'm angry at my stepmom for orchestrating this, hurt that my dad is going along with it, and scared about what's going to happen to me. I keep thinking about all the things I'm going to miss, the time I spend with my dad, the familiar creaks of the floorboards, even the stupid arguments with my stepmom. It might not have been perfect, but it was home. And what about the baby? I was actually looking forward to being a big brother, even if it was going to be weird. Now I might not even get to know my little sister or brother. Will my dad and stepmom just pretend I don't exist? I'm trying to stay calm and think logically, but it's hard. Every time I start to make a plan, my mind goes blank with panic. How am I supposed to juggle school, work, and finding a place to live all at once? And even if I do find somewhere, how will I pay for it? I've spent the last few hours scrolling through rental listings online, but everything is so expensive. Even the cheapest studios are way more than I can afford on my part-time salary, and most places want first and last month's rent plus a security deposit. Where am I supposed to get that kind of money? I've thought about dropping out of school to work full-time, but that feels like giving up on my future. I've worked hard to keep my grades up, and I don't want to throw that away. But I don't see how I can keep going to classes if I don't have a place to live. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. This isn't fair. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not a bad kid. I don't drink. I don't do substances. I've never been in trouble with the law. I help out around the house. I get decent grades. I have a job. Why am I being punished? I keep replaying conversations with my stepmom in my head, wondering if I could have done something differently. Maybe if I had stood up to her more or if I had tried harder to bond with her, things would be different. Update. My stepmom wanted to kick me out to make space for the baby. However, little did she know that I was the owner of the house, and now they are panicking. She made up her mind about me a long time ago, and nothing I could have done would have changed that. I've thought about reaching out to my real mom, but we haven't spoken in years. She left when I was little and has never shown much interest in being part of my life. I don't even know if she'd answer if I called. As for other family, my grandparents passed away a year ago, and I don't really know my aunts and uncles. They live in different states, and we've never been close. I can't imagine any of them would be willing to take me in. The worst part is feeling so alone. I can't talk to my dad about this because he's made it clear whose side he's on. My friends try to be supportive, but none of them really understand what I'm going through. They all think it's cool that I'm moving out like it's some big adventure. They don't get that I'm being forced out with no preparation and nowhere to go. I've thought about posting on social media to see if anyone knows of a cheap room for rent, but I'm embarrassed. I don't want everyone knowing my business or thinking I'm some kind of loser who can't take care of himself. As the hours tick by, I'm getting more and more desperate. I've started looking at ads for roommates, but most of them want someone older or with a full-time job. I've even considered sleeping in my car for a while, but I don't know if that's safe or even legal. I keep hoping that my dad will change his mind, that he'll realize this is crazy and tell my stepmom to back off. But every time I see him, he just gives me this sad, pitying look and asks if I found a place yet. It's like he's already written me off. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff about to be pushed off. I'm not ready for this. I don't have the skills or the resources to live on my own. I'm scared of ending up on the streets or having to drop out of school. If anyone has been through something like this or has any advice, I'd really appreciate it. I'm running out of time and options, and I don't know where else to turn. Thanks for reading this far, and sorry for the long post. I guess I just needed to get it all out. Update. Hey, everyone. I can't believe I'm writing this update. So much has happened in the last 24 hours, and my head is still spinning. I want to thank everyone who responded to my original post with advice and support. It really helped me get through a tough night. After I posted, I was still panicking about what to do. That's when I remembered my grandma's sister who's always been like a godmother to me. I hadn't thought of her at first because she lives pretty far away, but I was desperate and decided to give her a call. As soon as I explained the situation, she got really quiet. Then she said, "Don't you worry about a thing, sweetie. You don't need to go anywhere. I'm coming there tomorrow, and we'll sort this all out." I was confused but relieved. I tried to tell her it wasn't necessary for her to come all this way, but she insisted. She told me not to say anything to my dad or stepmom and just act normal until she got here. The next day, my stepmom was getting impatient. She kept asking if I'd found a place yet and making comments about how I needed to be out by the afternoon. I just kept my head down and said I was still looking. Around 2 p.m., the doorbell rang. My stepmom answered it, and I heard my godmother's voice. She sounded angry, which was weird because she's usually super calm. She marched into the living room where my dad and I were sitting and said, "We need to talk, all of us, now." My stepmom tried to argue, saying it was a family matter, but my godmother shut her down. "I am family," she said, "and I have something very important to tell you all." That's when she dropped the bombshell. She looked right at me and said, "Honey, this house belongs to you. Your grandmother left it to you in her will. You're the legal owner, and no one can make you leave." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My dad looked shocked, and my stepmom's face turned red. She started sputtering about how that couldn't be true, but my godmother pulled out some papers from her purse. She explained that my grandma had changed her will shortly before she died. Apparently, she knew about my dad's relationship with my stepmom. It had started before they got married, and she didn't trust her. She was worried she might try to take advantage of my dad and me, so she left the house to me as a way of protecting us. My dad was in tears asking why he hadn't been told about this. My godmother explained that it was done quickly and secretly when my grandma was on her deathbed. She said my grandma had made her promise not to say anything unless it became absolutely necessary. And now she said, looking at my stepmom, "It's necessary." My stepmom completely lost it. She started yelling about how it wasn't fair and how we had tricked her. She even tried to grab the papers from my godmother, but she pulled them away. That's when I found my voice. I stood up and told her to stop. I said, "This is my house, and I won't have you acting like this here." It felt weird to say, but also kind of good. For the first time, I felt like I had some power in this situation. My dad was still in shock, caught between me and my stepmom. I could see he was torn and confused. I felt bad for him, but I was also angry that he had gone along with her plan to kick me out. After things calmed down a bit, we all sat down to talk. My godmother explained the legal details, and it turns out I've been the owner of the house since my 18th birthday. My stepmom kept trying to argue, but there wasn't much she could say. In the end, I made a decision. I told them that I was willing to let everyone stay in the house, including my stepmom and the baby when it comes, but I had conditions. First, my stepmom had to start treating me with respect. No more criticism. No more lies to my dad about me. Second, we all had to go to family counseling to work on our relationships. And third, any major decisions about the house had to be discussed with me first. My dad agreed right away. My stepmom wasn't happy, but she didn't have much choice. It was either accept my terms or leave. It's been a few days now, and things are still tense. My stepmom barely speaks to me, but at least she's not being openly hostile anymore. My dad seems torn between guilt over what happened and relief that we're all still together. I'm still processing everything. It's weird to suddenly be the owner of a house at 19. I've got a lot to learn about property ownership and responsibilities, but I'm also feeling more secure than I have in a long time. I know we've got a long way to go before we're anything like a happy family, but at least now I know I have a place here, and no one can take that away from me. Thank you again to everyone who offered support and advice, and a huge thank you to my grandma, wherever she is, for looking out for me even after she was gone. I promise I'll do my best to take care of this house and make her proud.